this episode, you'll see how threat actors use marketing tools to gather information about their targets.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello and welcome to IT Pro TV. This is CEH. I'm Kathy, hanging out with Daniel today.
Hola.
Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be back.
So we are in the recon domain.
Nailed it.
Of CEH.
That's right. Doing some footprinting, reconnaissance.
Footprinting. I heard of this thing called email tracking.
You heard correct.
What
Look
is
at
it?
you.
What is it?
So
That's why we're here, right? We're here to learn from you,
Yeah,
Daniel.
well,
I mean, no pressure.
I try where I can to help you good folks out there. And Kathy as well. She's trying to get up to speed on this stuff. So yeah, email tracking, a very interesting way to gather information about a target. What's interesting about it is you've probably engaged in this in some way, shape, or form at some point in time if you've ever used email before, right? So email tracking is basically the idea of, I want to know the life cycle of the email that I send out. And this is heavily used by marketing and marketing firms to find out how successful they were at getting like a marketing email from their organization out into the world and see what kind of interaction was done with it, right? So we're going to talk about how that's done in just a little bit. But the information that they can yield from using email tracking is actually kind of astonishing. They get a lot of very detailed information. I went so far as to make a bit of a list just of the things I could think of off the top of my head. Things like whether or not they used a proxy to get the email. Did it bounce through proxy stuff or proxy servers? What was the IP address of the end user when they actually opened the email itself? Get IP information inside the organization. That's great. Hopefully you're starting to see where this can go as far as threat actors go. Geolocation's another good one. How long it took them to read the email. So you open the email, you're looking at it, you're done, you close the email. It tracks how long that happened or how long that took to happen. Were any links inside of the email clicked on? Can track that as well. Let's see, what else can we do? OS type, the operating system that they use to open the email with, could be good information for a marketer, knowing what platform is being used, but also great information for threat actors to know, oh, my target uses these types of operating system, and now I can narrow my focus into those specific operating systems that I know for a fact were used because of my email tracking. The browser type that was used, the host device type, so was to say Lenovo ThinkPad or a MacBook Pro. Good information all. And again, that's by no means an exhaustive list of the stuff they can get, but some of the more common elements that are gleaned through the use of email tracking.
So what's happening behind the scenes? How is this information being gathered and tracked?
Yeah. This is okay, we know what it does, but how the heck does this work? It's actually really ingenious. Obviously, some very smart people one day sat down and said, if we knew this information about people, we would be much more effective at marketing to them. I know how much you enjoy getting spam in your email box. I'm sure you do as well, right? So thank goodness for those very, very smart people. And they do it with code, okay? So obviously there's going to be some programming involved, but the way that it is implemented is really the interesting bit of it. What they do is they code into the email body a 1-by-1 image pixel, right? Now, we don't see this. It's basically an invisible attribute that is made up of code, and that code is what looks for those assets, those pieces of information, and gathers all that stuff up, and then connects back and delivers that information back to what ends up being, in my estimation, not much less than a command and control server that is receiving that information and then giving those metrics to the person that's looking at it, whether it be a marketer or a threat actor, and hopefully that's not what's going on. So basically making that tiny pixel to have that code which grabs that information. That's not the only way it can be done though. It's honestly, if you've ever had like a read receipt, you ever worked with read receipts, you get an email, it says, oh, so-and-so requested a read receipt so they know you opened it. That is technically a form of email tracking. So you may have actually worked with this a little bit in your past, just in a much more obvious form, all right? You opted into it, you said yes, or maybe it was company policy, and that's fine. But that could be a way that they're doing it. You maybe receive an outside email, it has a read receipt attached. you okay your way through it. And now they've got, okay, there is somebody at the end of this thing, and we can take advantage of that information.
Huh. So how can we do this? What kind of tools can we use?
We got a few.
Hopefully something easy to use.
Yeah, we got a few things that we can use. I got some fun stuff over here. Let's take a look and see what we can walk through. Here's one nice piece of software, Email Tracker Pro. And you can purchase this if you feel so inclined. But you can see it's got a nice graphical interface showing you all that wonderful information that it looks at. I know it's kind of small for you. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger. You can see it's got like IP information here, if there's an abuse address, the from field, the misdirected, whether or not that happened, the subject, a lot of information about the email itself. I love this geo-tracking stuff showing that it was opened up in Bristol, England. Jolly old, right? Great stuff there. So again, grabbing all that great information, there's a more detailed example of some of the information you can find using Email Tracker Pro. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's a great program for doing this. It does cost a little bit of money. I think you can get a trial with it to kind of play with it, see if it's going to be a great fit for you and your organization. But it seems to be pretty straightforward. I think it only runs on Windows at this point, though. So just bear that in mind. Other things we have, I got this cool GitHub repository called Infoga, right? Email OSINT. It's a tool gathering email account information such as IP, hostname, country, etc., from different public sources. There's also things like tracking links. So if people click on a link, it'll track that, send it back. I hope I mentioned that. If not, I'm saying it now. Don't forget about tracking links that can be used inside of email tracking. Together, they make a 1-2 combo that really gives you a lot of good information about email and what's going on with your target's email. Another one we have here is Bitly.
I've used Bitly.
I knew somebody used that. What have you used Bitly for?
To shorten so it's not like a long URL.
Yeah, which it's great for, right?
Yeah.
But it also has email tracking capabilities.
See, now I didn't know that.
Didn't know that, did you? Right? These are common tools that probably you and I have used just for different purposes. But if you repurpose them for the right reasons, you can gain some information from them. Last but not least is Linkly, very similar, right? And we're great about this. Try it free. Go in, play around, make some email tracking business. There's tons other. This is just a handful, obviously not an exhaustive list. But I just want to give you some real world examples of, what could you use if you wanted to engage in an email tracking campaign. Couple of tools readily available. Some of them cost a little money. Some of them platform dependent. Some of them command line driven. Some of them web driven. Pick your poison. Do what you want to do. What works best for you. But just be aware that you can use these things to gain information through email tracking. They have that capability.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah,
chat with me about a little email tracking.
Glad to do it.
Yeah,
It's
how
a
it
fun
works, tools we use.
I always love when we get to these conversations that are like, oh, this seems like a really interesting thing, and we're using normal tools that everybody's probably familiar with, at least in some way.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah.
And thank you for hanging out with us. Come back. There's more CEH coming your way.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.